Let's get into it. What's going on? Coach Colin here. Now, this video is challenging my own thought processes. And I try to have topics that are doing that. They're challenging what I think and how I think. But this one really pushes it, really, because I'm very much in the belief, I'm sure some of you are as well, that people have psychic abilities. Maybe I think everybody does. I think some people work that muscle more than others. And I think it's a real thing. Psychics, mediums, I'm really open to people being able to do that. But when I first started the research on this video, it was about, did Shawn Ryan interview a demon? Because of the way that this lady reacted when he asked about Jesus. She's a remote viewer and a psychic. The way she reacts is just wild. You'll see that in the video. But then as I was doing my research, I started hearing this theme of, not that these people are evil by nature. That's not what it is. I don't think so. And when I see people who are in their religious box and they point at someone else who is saying that they're a psychic, I always had the mindset of, you're just labeling that, you're in a box and you're labeling that person that's outside the box. That's all that is, right? But then as I go through this research, I start to think like, who's to say that these people aren't just being tricked? And that's what this episode, that's the common theme that you'll hear talked about throughout this. So it's going to be Shawn Ryan talking to two pastors. Then there's another interview where this guy says some wild stuff, and it makes perfect sense. And also there's Diana Pasulka. Really have to, if I'm going to interview her, I have to learn how to say her name properly. But if anybody knows, help me out here. But I play these three people talking about it. And it just made me start thinking differently about this, because there are demonic forces out there. For sure. I mean, we see them every single day. All sorts of clips. But there's also very good forces out there as well. And I think people could have accessed those good forces, but I think there's also a big possibility that these demonic forces are actually tricking these people. And I have my own experiences with this type of stuff as well, where I thought I was doing something good and I called in something bad. You thought you took something because you thought you were going to have this good experience, and then you have this really bad experience. I think it's just like walking through a hood in New York. You're planning on having a great day, and then all of a sudden you get mugged. And you're laying on the ground wondering what happened. Why isn't anybody calling the police? Right? There's good and there's bad out there. So anyway, let's jump in and listen to Shawn Ryan. This is going to set the premise pretty well. Let's go.
Lee, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to reference, I interviewed a scholar on this question of psychics and mediums and so forth for my book, and this is what he said. The Bible condemns all forms of occultism. Leviticus 19:26 commands, do not practice divination or seek omens. Similarly, Leviticus 19 verse 31 warns, do not turn to mediums. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses. Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. The Old Testament asserts that those who associate with familiar spirits are cursed by God. Furthermore, Exodus 22:18 and Leviticus 20:27 mandate that sorcerers and mediums living at that time be put to death. Deuteronomy 18 verses 10 through 12 is explicit. Let no one be found among you who is a medium or spiritist or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Revelation 9:21 promises that all who practice sorcery will face God's judgment. Their destiny is not heaven, but rather the lake that burns with fire and sulfur. Take a look at Revelation 21 verse 8 and 22 verse 15. So I think you're right. I think there's some pretty
Which
strong...
I have friends who, I'm thinking through the lens of, and so again, if we didn't tell you all this reason to believe that God was actually inspiring the writing of the scriptures to know his will and understand. But I have friends who both had a near-death experience and now are mediums. is a
Really?
medium. Oh yeah.
Interesting.
And I've said to her the same thing.
Yeah.
But just hearing that fresh, I'm like,
Yeah.
dang,
I know.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound good. Seriously, I mean, I think it's a dangerous area.
But again, okay.
I think
So, when I hear that, see, this is where my thinking is challenged. When I hear someone say something like that, right away I'm like, oh, well, maybe the reason that these people were looked down upon is because they had this ability and here's the thing. If you're coming from a place where you feel like everybody has this ability, which I do think everybody has this ability. And then you hear that, well, it's just like, oh, you just wanted to control people. So when someone stepped outside of it and they were using this ability they had to contact or channel or whatever, you did away with them because you wanted everybody in your box. Right? That's how I've thought about it. Even as a Christian, I hear people say, oh, anything to do with psychics, that's demonic. And I'm like, man, come on, leave them alone. That's the thought process for me. But as we go on, because I'm not just going to leave it there, we have Miss Pasulka talk about this a little bit. And the way she breaks it down, if you know her, she has a very simple way of explaining things, but also has this wealth of knowledge. And she's a pretty high up person when it comes to professor of religion, but then also is this incredible UFOologist who also has access to Vatican archives. I mean, she's a unicorn of sorts, but the way she breaks it down makes it make a lot more sense. And she's very against any type of downloads or communicating, but you'll hear it in this clip.
Reports from pilots. My friend Dr. E.O. Whiteley, the same thing. She's a pilot as well, trains pilots. So we do have these reports. They could get people up there to talk about the real thing. They really could, but they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
It's fascinating too.
Yeah.
Do you think that they've been communicating with us for a long time? It makes me think about the crop circle phenomena, and some of those are faked, but a lot of them aren't. And are they trying to say something to us, communicate to us in some sort of way?
Yeah. So I do think.
I should just say he's talking about UFOs in terms of communicating, just to let you know.
I think that consciousness is an access point. So I think that the early church, look what happened to Francis. He's up there on the screen now. So here he is. He's trying to talk to angels. He's praying on a mountain, and he's praying to God, right? And it's on the feast day of the archangels. So he's basically his mind or something in his consciousness is accessing this other realm, and they come, right? Yeah. So I think that there is now saying that, I think that you do not do this. You don't try to access it unless you just because there are bad ones. And I've seen this too. So I've had so many people come to me, like thousands of people at this point, with information, reports. And so most of them are really bad. Yeah. So don't do this in your life, right? So religious traditions have evolved, constraints on how we access these realms, and listen to those. Those are the things we shouldn't throw out. We should, we should be careful.
And this is kind of where I think I personally disagree with Joe Rogan and his ideas around psychedelics, because those experiences, and he says it, and a lot of people in this space who are in the psychedelic space say that they're having real encounters with real entities. But man, the people that of faith that get there, they'll tell you quickly that there's a false Jesus that walks around, that there are these entities that say these things and know these things about you. But it doesn't feel like we're supposed to do that.
Yeah, I would say don't.
Yeah.
So she says don't. And you guys know, I know a little bit about Joe Rogan. I use a clip here or there. I don't know if you heard. But what they're talking about with Joe Rogan actually says that when he goes to that realm, he actually interacts with things, and he says that they know him, that they've known him for a long time, that they are pure love. And he even has gone and said in an interview that they kind of look at him and they're so evolved that they're like, let me just fix things in you. And they can kind of just move this around, move that around, and they fix you. in a certain way, which I'm unclear of because he never really states how he gets fixed or what changes when he's in these realms. But that's what they're talking about when it comes to Joe Rogan and his feeling. Duncan Trussell, his friend, has also reported the same type of stuff.
Especially because I've had people come to me with knowledge of stuff they shouldn't know about me.
Yeah.
And I know like those are the things we shouldn't throw out. We should,
I feel like I should go back a little bit, just go back for a little bit.
we should be careful.
And this is kind of where I think I personally disagree with Joe Rogan and his ideas around psychedelics, because those experiences, and he says it, and a lot of people in the space who are in the psychedelic space say that they're having real encounters with real entities. But man, the people that of faith that get there, they'll tell you quickly that there's like a false Jesus that walks around, that there are these entities that say these things and know these things about you. But it doesn't feel like we're supposed to do that.
Yeah, I would say don't.
Yeah.
Especially because I've had people come to me with knowledge of stuff they shouldn't know about me.
Yeah.
And I know they were bad people. Like
Right.
I could tell. And so people don't have the discernment that the religious traditions suggest that you practice.
Right. There's a way to access, we have the Holy Spirit. There's a way to access God, to pray to God. Jesus showed us that in the garden, how to pray. They asked him a very simple question, which is maybe it's a loaded question, but like I think it's interesting. I just think this whole conversation as we, this is what Nate and I've been doing for 4 years, is trying to unpack angels in some ways. Like,
Yeah.
what are we actually
Yeah.
talking about? There's a Greek word that means messenger. This is
Well, I
this
was just going to say that. I mean, messenger is a big part of the angels. I mean,
Yeah.
it's their job to bring us messages.
That's right. That's right. And I think they do.
Yeah.
And I think that happens. I mean, it sounds like that person whose plane was,
Yeah.
he was saved, his life was saved. That I would call that an angelic
Yes.
situation, right?
Yeah.
So,
But associating angels and UFOs, it's not a wild. Is that where you're at?
oh, there's a direct lineage, historical lineage, because if you unpack what an angel actually looks like, it's that imagery that we see and we've been brought up with. That's actually that's pre-Christian imagery, right? So that's imagery that domesticates the event, the angel contact event. And generally, even like, look at Mary, be not afraid. This is repeated over and over again in the Bible for a reason, because it's scary. It's a scary event.
Yeah.
And when it comes, when you don't ask for it and it comes and it imparts knowledge that you need from, God is sending a messenger, I believe that that's true. I believe that that's good. Okay. But I think that allow that to happen. Don't
Don't look for it.
Yeah,
Or summon
like-
it, right? Or whatever they try to.
yeah, I think so. That's my. I mean, I could change my mind, but after what I've experienced, I don't think I will.
Yeah. Careful what you pray for
Yeah.
sometimes. You have to have that humility factor. And I think a lot of people don't. They go looking for it. And especially with these people trying to contact aliens, they're just out there on the shining lasers into the sky. Be like, come down and hang out
It's
with
like
us.
the Independence Day, the beginning of Independence Day, where they're like,
I saw that. Yeah,
they like all dance on the top of
Yeah,
in
they
LA,
did,
like,
like,
boom,
yeah.
and then it's like,
right.
see ya.
But I think that it is a terrifying event, and you have to think about there's probably a lot of things going on in that event, that not just a being standing there, but maybe there's an entourage of weird stuff that they've brought with them, and you're looking into. And a lot of people who are seers on our show too, often will say some bizarre stuff and see bizarre stuff, and it's hard as podcasters and hosts to know, okay, are you seeing good things? Are you seeing bad things? Are they manipulating your perception? Are they presenting you a false light? I don't know. Like, how are we supposed to make sense of these encounters? And I think that's why the Bible forbids a lot of these things.
I think so, to keep us safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have, like, if consciousness is an access point,
Yeah.
it's very important to keep it sovereign.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
just
a good
talking to the
word.
dead, you're not supposed to do it. It's not that you can't.
Right.
You shouldn't, and because you don't know.
Back
And
to the medium. Back to the medium talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to. It's pretty specific. You don't do that. Yeah.
I guess one of my last questions is now, like, what if you had a conversation with yourself 12 years ago before you got into this? How would that go? And what would you, what do you, how, I know that's impossible to do, but I'm just trying to think of like where you are now versus where you were.
Yeah.
Would you look at yourself and be like, you are nuts, you're out of your mind? Or is there a part of you that this truth, this understanding is all you've always wanted to know the truth, and it
Yeah.
didn't matter what it was?
Yeah. So, I had a conversion experience at 11. So
Okay.
I still have that Bible that I made my mother buy me after that. Is the key.
Wow, I didn't know that. I let that run a little long. Virgin experience at 11. That's very odd, especially to see where she is now and what kind of figure she is. You have that at 11, and then I don't know, how old could she be 40, 47, 48, something like that. Said she used to have young children. They're older now. You say she's like almost 50, and now she's like in the Vatican hanging out, going deep. She said she's been like six levels down in the Vatican, in the archive. Just wild stuff. But what they said is very interesting. How she said, consciousness is an access point, right? And I believe that. I believe that definitely. I believe if there's any interdimensional travel for us in this material realm, that it's going to be via our consciousness, right? If there's any type of travel, if there's any type of communication, that's where it's going to be. So that has to be the access point. See, where I never thought of what she said, how religion gives you the structure on how to communicate with these realms, or with the realm, or with God, directly to God, and not getting intercepted by anything that's evil. I never, even as somebody who prays every day with my family, I pray over my wife, I pray over my child, I've never thought of it like that. I always thought that religion was more stopping you from even attempting that. But now that I'm delving into the supernatural, and then you see people doing things like prayer and stuff, it's like, that's pretty supernatural what you're doing. It's nice, it's peaceful, it builds faith, it humbles you, it does all these great things, but it's also a very supernatural thing. It's like if you ask me, like, what do you do in the morning? Oh, well, I get on my knees with my wife, and I contact Jesus, and we call him into the house, and we thank him for everything, and we just let him know a bunch of stuff about us, and we ask him for faith. If someone had no concept of anything supernatural or weird or religion or anything, they'd be like, what do you do? Like, take away the religion and the godliness, and it's just like, oh, I get down on my knees and I call in this spirit, and it all sounds very weird, but I guess that's what's going on. It's just making me view it a little different, right? I don't know. It's very interesting. And then she's very much like, don't. They talk about Joe Rogan accessing these realms, and they're saying how you shouldn't do that. But it's also hard in a sense, because who's to say what's good and what's bad in that realm, or when you're praying, or when you're calling out to something, or trying to communicate to something? Who's to say what's good and what's bad? Aleister Crowley did it in this, I think it's called the Balskin House. He tried to communicate with the kings of hell, like the 12 kings of hell, or 6 kings, something like that. He tried to communicate with them. That's obviously bad. But I don't know. When someone says they have a spirit guide, and that's what we're going to start touching on here. When someone says they have a spirit guide, you feel like, well, that's a nice thing. That's their angel that they're communicating with. But are they? And how would they know? The same way I want to question a priest who's like, stay away from that because that's evil. How do you know? But then also the person who's on the side of, like, I have this spirit guide, and her name's Mary, and she talks to me, and I communicate, and she gives me downloads. How do you know? Is it because it feels good? Because that's not a good marker, because in this materialistic world, these demonic forces often will bring you things that feel good. They will feed off of bad emotions, pull you up from those dark, bad emotions, bring you into a better stage of your life, and that will feel good, but you're still being deceived, right? Just like, go on the other side. When there's good, and you're calling on God, you're calling on Jesus, Allah, Hashem, whatever, you're calling on the good. Well, then a lot of times with people in that situation, they kind of get dragged through the mud, and they ask for strength, and then they get put in hard situations. They ask for faith, and they get put in dire situations where there's no hope left, and they can't do anything to save themselves. And they ask for all these things, and all of a sudden all these situations come, and it seems terrible and it feels bad. But then do you equate calling on God as a bad thing? No, because on the other end, there's good. So it's I don't know, man. It's a very mixed bag. It's not like I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to become a witch. Forget about it. I'm not going there, but it's interesting to think about. Now here's some more from the obvious side, the pastors. This video is called They're in Contact with Demons. So you know where they're at with this.
Who's the other one I just said? Kyle, Howard. 5 or 6 of them who had hellish near-death experiences and cried out to God, and Jesus saved them, and they're all Christian pastors or missionaries today.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's wild. You can't make this stuff up. Like, how do you explain that?
I mean, it's an interesting subject. I've interviewed a handful of them, and one of them was Angela Ford, and she had done a lot of work for the government and found some missing kids and stuff. And I asked her in the interview, I said, have you ever remote viewed?
Oh, she's a psychic.
crucifixion? Yeah. And she did not want to answer that. She started rubbing her teeth and like moving her head back and forth. And
Why?
I didn't want to dig any deeper. It was, I mean, she was really open the whole interview. And then when I asked her that, it just
shut down.
like she switched.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, I don't think necessarily people know.
Right.
And I think that's part of the problem is that I don't think they're necessarily evil, wicked people. They many times have good intentions and good motives. And again, the best deception is 80-90% true.
Yeah.
And so I think, like Lee was saying, I think sometimes you can have things that are helpful, but are they in fact helpful for a reason to get people to follow after them, not after God?
Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, she said, yes, I have. And I said, do you want to talk about it? And she just started rubbing her teeth.
Have you tried to look into religion at all, such as the crucifixion? You have? Do you not want to talk about that? Okay.
In an interview, you always got to let the person say that they don't want to talk about it. If it's going to be something where you have to move on, you have to let them be the person to move it along and say, they have to say, I'm not talking about this. Otherwise, you just keep going. I don't know. That's what I would have done with her, because it's such an odd reaction that she has. Like, it makes me wonder, what if Shawn, what if he just grabbed one of the crosses on his wall and said, I command you? And she's just like, what would have happened? If he was like, in Jesus' name, she's like, so dumb. But it's a very odd reaction. And that was going to be the focal point of this whole video. I was like, did Shawn just like talk to a demon or something like that? But again, as you go into the subject of who are these people actually in contact with, she is a remote viewer, which means that she kind of takes this access point of her conscious, and she can move it to other places and see what's going on and bring back the location. And she's been successful in doing this. So it's not made up. Definitely not made up. And she's psychic. But it's like, who is she in contact with? Who's actually giving her this gift? You would think if you have a gift that is helping you and it's pleasant, you would think this is a God-given gift. But it could be something that is just allowing you this power because it's using you as a vessel of sorts, maybe even feeding off of you, whatever is going on. So it makes you wonder, especially with that reaction. She's just like, almost like when she pictures it, how, like in Exorcist, it's like they put the water on them, they show them the Bible, and they're like, it burns. She almost had a reaction like that, Here, let's move on to the next clip. I'm going to show that clip again because I just want you to see how she was before he brought it up and how she was after, because it's so weird. But here's another clip.
Was standing there by his bed. He felt the worst he had ever felt in his life, and suddenly he felt wonderful.
Near-death experience, just so you guys know. This is a near-death experience that he's explaining, not himself, but someone that he knows. And this near-death experience actually didn't go the way that so many of them do. He actually stepped into darkness or there was dark forces around him, but I'll let him explain.
And he doesn't even know he's dead. Like, he doesn't realize he's dead because he's sitting there thinking, something happened. I feel wonderful. And he feels these new senses. This group of people then come into the hallway, and he can see them in the hallway, and they're calling to him, Howard, come with us. And he said, I'm sick. I need a surgeon. You know, that's what he's been waiting for. And they said, oh, we know all about you. Come with us. Don't you want us to help you? We're going to help you. Come on, we've been waiting a long time. Come with us. Okay, so time out. I like to point out that not every near-death experience is as deep as others, like meaning all the elements. So some just, there's an out-of-body experience and they're back in.
Okay.
Those can be interpreted in a million ways, right? A million worldviews can wrap around that. If Howard had at this point come back to his body and been resuscitated, his interpretation probably would have been, hey, it's all good. Atheists go to heaven. It feels great. It's nice people. Everything's good. But that's not what happened. So he starts to follow these people. And again, time and even distance, it doesn't work the same on the other side, which I don't fully understand that, except that by analogy, think about, from here to Austin, Texas, where I live, Nashville to Austin, it's a long way, right? It's a 2-hour flight. But what if I could think it and be there? How far is it now?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, distance doesn't mean the same thing. So on the other side, so he couldn't tell, and he follows these people, and he starts to realize they're deceiving him. They're starting to mock him. They're cursing him. They're all these, and he starts to realize this is not good. And then he realizes he's in this darkness, and it keeps getting darker, and he tries to say, hey, I want to go back. And they're like, you're not going anywhere. They start pushing and shoving, and he's in he calls it a darkness that's darker than black. And I've heard people commonly say that. Jesus called it the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, meaning like just, it's, I don't know, I guess just horrific. And that's what he experienced. And so he finally realizes he's being deceived by these creatures that he couldn't fully see completely, because they were kind of veiled. But now it's dark and he can't see them, but he can feel them, and they start to maul him. He starts to try to fight to get away, and they're having fun. So I've had him talk to me about this 4 times, and he starts to describe it. And then he says to me, I can't go any farther, because he had PTSD from it.
Every single time you interviewed him, he couldn't push past?
Yeah, he can't. There's a certain point that he would say, I can't go any farther because it's taken me a long time to. He had what, vets would call PTSD, because it's real. It's more real than this. And I think that's a very important point to note, that what's ahead is better than the best we've experienced. But what's ahead is worse than the worst we've experienced too. And I believe that we are in a temporal, time capsule for a purpose. We are in a time of choosing. We're in a time of choosing. What kingdom do we want to be a part of? Is it me and my kingdom and I rule? Because as it turns out, that's what hell is. Hell is the creature wanting to play God. And it's dominate or be dominated. And that's what Howard realized in this place. It was really interesting, because he said, first of all, picture the worst prison scene.
Man, very black, a darkness that's blacker than black. That's like Wesley Snipes. Like you're in the realm of Wesley Snipes, You know what I mean? I'm not even making a joke. You guys know how dark he is. The darkest person you ever seen, no? No? Anyway. But it's something to think about. It's also something I always like near-death experience stories, because they're always so interesting. and they're lovely and they always have a lovely ending because the person wakes up. You're like, oh, my wife, they're happy. This story is very different. And I guess that's how it is based on how you've lived. And I guess that's what he means by what's coming is the best or what's coming is the worst. And I really like that he says we're in this place. It's like a time of choosing, because that really is what's going on. There's a lot of, they always say that you're given, well, they always say, and you can kind of feel it. I don't know if you believe in it, but you're given like this free will where you can do what you want. You can strengthen that relationship with God, or you can, lessen that relationship. You can be materialistic. You can strive to just be a billionaire. You can cut off all your family. You can give to charity every single day and, completely live a selfless life. You could do whatever you want, and that will lead you somewhere at the end of it. I guess it's almost like the macrocosm of, because in this life, you can do anything. I'm thinking, what I'm trying to parse out is when it comes to habits, like when I was doing coaching, I was like a habit coach. I would coach people on how to strengthen their habits and how to get rid of habits, right? And I would always say whatever habit you had was moving you closer to something. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but if you smoke crack every day, you're moving towards being a crackhead. I know it's nuts, but that's just the way it goes. You will end up on that path if you start doing it, and it's just one step at a time, right? Whereas if you, become a real estate mogul, right? That happens one step at a time. And those little habits that you do every day, like there are a series of habits that you do every single day that are moving you closer to becoming an expert or an addict of something. I don't know what it is for you. I don't know the things you do every day. I do this every day. I don't know what this is moving me towards. I like it, but I have no idea. I do this every single day pretty much. I try to take Sunday off, but I like to do this work. What do you do every single day? It's moving you towards something. I guess, you're in this realm of choice. I don't know. It's something to think about. Really something to think about. We're not done the clips though. What do I have next? Oh, this was this woman, Angela Ford. So this is her before Shawn asks her the question, and then look at how she dramatically changes.
Life, everybody that you know.
Everybody everybody in your sphere of,
you would know. I think it was explained to me like, you've got 1 million people will leave this earth, and then 1 million people will come down to replace the 1 million people that left.
do we immediately come back?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I think you kind of have to wait for your karma group to figure out, if you come back this time, are you going to be my mother or my sister or my father or.
Why do you think that we come back? What have you experienced that makes you believe
probably to get better and to whatever errors we have, try to replace them. There's a reason why we come back. Do we need to learn more love? Do we need to learn more patience?
Have you had any experiences that solidify your beliefs?
Not really. I mean, I can't, I don't have any scientific evidence. I did have one woman put me through a past life. And I don't know if it's true. It was sort of like a hypnotic state where you kind of go and visualize a past life. And I think I was in Nova Scotia growing wheat. I remember that. But
just worst life, hands down, most boring, worst life you could possibly relive. So many. If this reincarnation is true, there's so many you have access to. And you went to the Nova Scotia growing wheat one. That's nice. That's, how many, don't you wish you were a king in the past life? A queen? Some well-to-do person? I was in Nova Scotia growing wheat. It was absolutely terrible. I was white, but I was working like a slave. I really, really didn't like this life. I get it.
I remember also there was a religion there that was very strict. I can remember in whatever under that session, I remembered belonging to an organized religion that was very strict. And so when I came out of that, I probably figured, well, the Catholic religion that I grew up with probably that energy was probably coming from that energy from that past life. And so somehow maybe I cleared myself of it in this life.
Have you tried to look into religion at all, such as the crucifixion? You have? Do you not want to talk about that? Okay. Do you want to talk about, you had mentioned you had a UFO experience.
Yeah, when I was 13 years old.
Let me tell you something. It can never be me. Never be me in an interview like that. I ask you something, you rub your teeth. Next 5 minutes, that's all we're talking about, just so you know. I want to know why. As soon as you start rubbing your teeth, the next question is, why are you rubbing your teeth? You okay? Why are your eyes welling up? What's going on with you? Tell me about the crucifixion. That's it. That's what I'm doing. I don't know. It's such an odd reaction. That's why this was the focal point of the video for me. I was like, that has to be, there's some evil in there. But as I was doing the research, like I said, you start to realize a lot of people who have gifts, we look at them as if they, the people who claim they have gifts, whether you believe that or not, but we look at them like they have gone through some kind of schooling. They know something, but they could be tricked just like anyone. Just like you look at a Hollywood actor and you go, wow, he must know some stuff, right? He must know some stuff. Those parts, wildly successful. Look at him. Wow. Nice haircut. When in reality, he was just a scared, lonely soul who just wanted to be accepted, and he let some dude dip him in baby oil, and the next thing you know, he's a star. After he wakes up, doesn't remember what happened. Every time he says no, they play a video that he doesn't even remember happening, and then he signs the contract, and then he's in another movie. And now you look up to him, right? I love that expression, dipped in baby oil. I coined that myself. Dipped in baby oil. But it's the same type of thing. Everyone's just a person. So easily, someone like this could be tricked. I've always looked at people who could remote view as if they've gone through some kind of mystery school. They have access to the true occult. They know things that we don't know. They've gone through practices that we couldn't possibly know, but it's like, you could be duped easily. You're a person. And then I found this when I actually started Googling, like communicating with spirits, talking about people getting duped. You're going to learn from this lady. No offense to that lady. I'm just saying, it's interesting how much, this is why you should use a spirit box when ghosts. I don't even want to click on that. How to communicate, how spirits communicate with people. Right? Like who is to say all these people, all of what they know, who's to say they're not being completely tricked? I mean, I gotta say, you know what I mean? Like whatever spirit you're talking to, that spirit's not telling you to clean it up a bit. Huh? That spirit's not like, hey, get a haircut. Spirit never says that. If it was a good spirit, it would definitely say that, Only a demon would have you looking like that. Never mind. You look a little better, miss. But who knows? This lady's a psychic teacher. Right? She teaches this stuff. It's just there's so much as you look into it. So many people, how to communicate with your spirit and angel guides in 30 seconds. 30 seconds, the video's 3 minutes. Come on. Hey, what's going on? How to speak to the universe. It's just, you just don't know who's being tricked and who's for real. And then on top of that, you know, as I'm like, yeah, I'm joking with these people here, but you also don't know, like, who's to say that it is all evil and they're getting tricked? Who's to say that? I don't know. That's the part of my thinking that's getting challenged, because I've always just thought, yeah, some people probably have that. Some people, just like some people naturally get bigger biceps, some people naturally can just run a little further. Some people naturally have a stronger intuition, right? Some people probably just have a different part of their mind that they know how to use and they've been using for a long time. So they have this ability. It seems like we all don't have this ability. You see somebody with a 6-pack and this incredible build, myself, and you're like, well, that's not for me. That's their genetics. But it's like, you have access to it too. And I think that same thing with psychic and telekinesis and whatnot, you know, junk DNA, things like that. I think there is no junk DNA. I think that's a lie. I think there might have been someone might have done some tampering with DNA, but again, that's for another episode. But here's another clip where this guy talks about this same topic.
New Age, I've got a spirit.
That is how fast I listen to things. I know it's not normal. It's fine. Keep going.
Spirit guy. I've got a. We had one lady come in. I have a family ancestral animal spirit, and this is a good thing for our family. So we said, let's test it. The pastor that was in our offices just at the doorway looked and said, in the name, as soon as he began to pray, and he said, in the name of Jesus, she called it a bear spirit. This demon manifested and just was ready to attack him and growl. He rebuked it, cast it out of her. She went to the ground. She began to cry. She said, I had no idea. I didn't know what it was. We got to remember, Satan can masquerade. Remember that scripture? He can masquerade. It's the word metaschizmazo. He can morph his presence tactically for deception without changing his nature. So he can get into, that's why people believe the aliens are, this or ancient, the Great White Brotherhood and things like that, these ancient spirits. Their power to masquerade and play and tactically do whatever they need to get the allowability to get in. So I do think some people have stuff, and we've seen this, they have stuff, they know something's there. They're not, maybe they opened a door somewhere, whatever, but once somebody comes to express authority and all of a sudden full-blown manifestation occurs, they're like, I had no idea. I thought it was just a helper spirit guide. I just thought it was an enhancement, and they have no idea the depth of it. And so it can be they don't know the full depth of it until some engagement occurs.
Last year, the Vatican.
So, yeah, this is interesting. Interesting to think about. So when you hear somebody and you know what I was thinking of as, I was making that joke about the guys, I'm like, oh, why didn't your spirit guide tell you to get a haircut or whatever? But it's funny how some of the darkest people, I don't mean Wesley Snipes, I mean of aura, they have this need to look like Jesus. Have you ever seen this? Where there's always these people where they want to look, they have the long hair and the beard, and you know what you're doing. If you're a guy, you got long hair and a beard, you're just like a regular white guy, and your hair is down to here, you know what look you're pulling for. You know what you're doing. And usually those guys, shouldn't blanket statement, but I'm gonna. But a lot of times those guys are either narcissistic or they have this thing about them where they want a following of sorts. It's just interesting that they all try to look like Jesus. Even the girls will try to look like a feminine version without the goatee, of course. I mean, depending on what circles you're in, right? It's just, it's really something to think about. Again, this just challenged my thinking. And it's not like I'm now going to look at anybody who's psychic and I'm going to go, and I'm going to look at tarot cards. I'm going to get this off. I'm going to start flipping tables over and whatnot. But you just have to think. It's kind of like, it's like if you went hunting with a bunch of dudes, right? if you went hunting with a bunch of guys and you were talking to one guy and he's like, yeah, retired Navy SEAL and, haven't wanted to get back into anything. I teach a couple tactical courses and whatnot out in Austin. And yeah, it's pretty good. And another guy's like, yeah, retired Air Force. And the other guy's like, yeah, it's been a competing, long range shooter for the longest time. You'd be like, huh, this is a pretty solid. These guys have all these things. We're going hunting. We're good. We're all good. I don't have a thing to worry about right now. Right. But if you sat down with a bunch of guys and you're like, huh, you guys got all these firearms. How you doing? One guy's like, yeah, I just been on crack for the past 4 days. I haven't slept. Another guy's like, I'm drunk right now. And another guy's like, I have never, ever held a firearm in my life. Let's go hunting. You'd be like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Wait a second, guys. We need someone who's trained. And that goes back to what Diana was talking about the consciousness being an access point and, religion giving you kind of a structure of how to access these realms, how to go about moving through these realms. You need people who are trained. So I would say to you, if you come across anybody that's like that, like try to figure out what their training is. Was their and here's the thing to look out for. As I say this, I just clicked. Here's the thing to look out for. If you hear someone's life story, let's say they're one of these people and you hear their life story and it was bleak and dark for the longest time of depression, sadness, and anger, and then they started becoming psychic, that's what do the kids call it now? Red flag? That's a red flag right there. That's something to watch out for. I don't know. Again, this is very, very much challenged my thinking. I would love to know what you guys think about this whole thing. I know some people out there will be like, anything that has to do with anything like this is dark. There is no light side to this whole thing. But I would disagree in the sense of, and, I won't even just say my religion. I say people of religion. And there has to be people outside of those boxes of religion that can access the light. That know how to do that and have been doing that. And then look at, if anything, religion has to be the light side of what we're talking about being the darkness. People, I know, I can tell you a story right now. I know there's people in religious circles, right? Let's say Christian circles. And when someone comes and says, I've been talking to Holy Spirit and Holy Spirit has a message to give you, and I'm going to give you that message. I know there's so many people that go, okay, let's hear it. Not me. When I hear someone say that, I'm like, oh, you're a liar. You're just going to try and tell me what to do right now. That's what you're doing. And you're just trying to masquerade as God. That's what you're trying to do right now. I've seen that so many times. I've seen that in comment sections. I've seen that a ton of times. And it throws me off. But the thing is, no one questions that. When someone's a prophet, when someone is, channels the Holy Spirit, all of that stuff, no one questions that. But then when we see these psychics, we question them. We question what they're connected to. When you hear somebody going into these realms like Joe Rogan does, we question what's going on with them. I think all of that needs to be questioned. And again, that's why I bring up just looking into what that person's life's been like. Has it just been bleak and dark and anger, all the things that demonic forces will feed on? Or did that all get removed first through a process that they actually went through step by step, and then they stumbled on to these abilities that they have? I don't know, guys. Anyway, just wanted to bring that to you. I'm out of here.